Dun 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 dun. That's how they started things off, so I will too. On one end we have the Three Stooges, a popular comedy act from the 30s and beyond, most known for hitting each other with hammers, falling off ladders, almost any type of physical comedy that involves some sort of pain. Each of the three characters has a unique personality and demeanor. It's hard to describe, but if you've seen them, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Do something, do something! Grab that screwdriver, put it in his ear and short him. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
The trio most famously consisted of Moe, Larry, and Curly, though Curly was replaced by Shemp eventually, and Shemp was later replaced by people named Joe. On the other end, we have the Farrelly brothers, the two guys responsible for some hit comedies such as Dumb and Dumber, Me, Myself, and Irene, and probably some other stuff that didn't star Jim Carrey. They generally make over-the-top comedies, which is why they seem like a good pair to be in charge of a Three Stooges movie. So it happened. They made it, I watched it, and here's what I have to say about it. First off, this wasn't much of what I would call an actual movie, more of a thin plot that's just really there to provide a structure for all the Stooges' antics. Which I'll admit is what many comedy movies are, but this one even more so. The Three Stooges are meant to be in shorts, not full-length movies. And I think the makers realized that too, so they structured it in 3 segments, like you would see if you watched the original shorts. But in this case, each one leads into the next, which is actually a good idea, but the plot of the entire movie is just so simple and insignificant, the movie being framed this way just further takes me out of it. Here's the plot of each of the 3 shorts. 1. The Stooges are associated with an orphanage that's in danger of shutting down unless they could raise a ton of money. 2. The Stooges go out and try to raise this money. They're hired to kill a guy, a lot of this section takes place in a hospital, and then Moe splits from the group. 3. Moe becomes a member of the Jersey Shore, and then just things start to get resolved. You now already know most of what happens in this movie, but it's the Three Stooges. It's never been about the plot. It's been about the characters, the physical comedy, and the jokes. Though this is a movie, it would have been good to include a little more plot, but it's fine. Let's look at the characters. For the first 12 minutes of the movie, the Stooges are kids, meaning it's 12 minutes of watching kids do impressions that, let's say, aren't great.
Oh, and by the way, oh! That's for all the stupid things you did while I was gone.
I told you he'd find out.
But something I will say about the first 12 minutes is that it better captures the feeling of the original shorts better than any other part of the movie.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Then they skip 25 years and become adults, and the actors switch to Sean Hayes for Larry, Will Sasso for Curly, and Chris Diamantopoulos for Moe. Of these 3, my favorite performance by far was Sean Hayes for Larry. And I suspect this might be because Larry is a funny person to impersonate. In my opinion, Larry was a home run.
Yeah, I'm worried too. I don't know how he's gonna fit in out there. I mean, just look at his haircut. People must think he's insane.
Yeah.
Chris Diamantopoulos for Moe was about average. Moe seems like the easiest to impersonate. It's hard to do anything great with it, but it's also kind of hard to mess it up.
Hey, just relax, pal. We'll have a toe tag on you in no time. Now what?
Curly was my least favorite. Will Sasso did a pretty spot-on impression too.
Oh boy, Foster's. That's Australian for beer.
Would you like that in a bottle or a mug?
I'll take it in the mug.
You got it.
Foster home.
It'd be hard to find someone much better, but here's what I think is the problem. Most impressions are funny because they're over the top. They're exaggerated. The comedian takes a few little things the original person tends to do and highlights them.
Like Nicolas Cage. Hi, I'm Nick.
Well, the original subject is already like this. It's hard to exaggerate it, or even add anything to it. No matter how great the impression is, it'll never be as good as the real thing. And without being able to add anything new with the impression, I was just watching the whole time thinking this would be so much better if the actual Curly were in it. Also, I want to add, the orphanage was ran by a group of nuns, played by a strange assortment of actors. Notably Jane Lynch, Jennifer Hudson, Kate Upton, and Larry David. Larry David is funny as always, doing his normal Larry David type character, but I have no idea why he's a nun. It's not explained, and if it was, I completely missed it. I'd say it was definitely more distracting to me than funny. Now, on to some of the physical comedy and jokes. A huge problem with this movie is that it's all jokes. It would be hard to find a 10-second clip that didn't include some kind of joke. I'll try it right now. Here's a random part from the movie. Well, that happened even quicker than I thought it would. There's about 10 issues with including wall-to-wall jokes in your movie. It makes the tone of the movie feel unbelievably fake. It's just tiring to the viewer, and it forces a lot of jokes that aren't great.
Say, I haven't noticed your own hair before. I like curvy woman.
I bet you say that to all the cows.
There was some really good stuff for sure. Gags you can tell were well thought out, where one joke leads to the next, which is what the original show was, and a big part of what made it so great.
Come on.
But in this movie, they feel they need to throw jokes in between the jokes, a bunch of lazy one-liners. Almost every joke I felt was good was followed by something stupid.
See? I told you there's too much iron in the water.
Take this one. What I think is one of the funniest things in the movie. It's all visual, it helps tell the story, and it's clever. But then, why do they have to spell it wrong? Why do they feel the need to push it so far? They saw an opportunity for one more joke and threw it in. They didn't care how bad it was or how much it hurt the original joke. And that's very reflective of this entire movie. And there were a handful of gags that either I don't understand or they're some of the worst attempts at humor I've ever heard.
Jonesy, you gotta hold still in order to get a drink.
Overall, Rotten Tomatoes has this at 51%, which seems about right. I would have possibly guessed a little lower if anything. Here's where I think it went wrong. The Farrelly brothers seem to have a lot of respect for the source material, possibly too much. They didn't change much of anything, yet still failed to capture the tone of the original show. And at that point, you might as well watch the original show. Here's some of my personal suggestions to anyone out there who's planning on making another Three Stooges movie, which I assume is most of you. Make it more serious. It doesn't have to be a drama, but don't be afraid to spend a little more time on character development, plot development, and don't feel the need to cram a joke in every few seconds. The three main characters have some unique traits that do come through, but that's about all I know about them. The plot does come through in certain moments. It even has kind of a double twist type ending, but I didn't care because it wasn't properly developed. All of this stuff was lacking because all the time was spent on silly gags. I know it's the Three Stooges, but it's also a movie now, and adjustments have to be made. Second is, don't be afraid to stray away from the original character a little bit. This movie did everything they could to make these characters as close to the original ones as possible, and obviously you can only get so close. The overboard attempts made them seem unrealistic and put them adjacent to the scene. I was very aware that I was watching actors trying to imitate characters rather than getting lost in the movie. There's no reason for the Curly impression to be perfect. Just make him act enough like Curly so I get that it's Curly. That's all we need. Less is more in this case. Number 3 is not as necessary as the first two, but I'd like to see a little time travel aspect to it. The Three Stooges are from a completely different era. Just structure it this way. In the first act, they're stooges in the 1930s. Second act, they find themselves in modern day. Third act, they return or embrace modern day or whatever. But it's a great source of jokes that relate to the plot, and more importantly, it gives the movie an actual plot. This is basically what Austin Powers did, and it worked perfectly. Even in this Three Stooges movie, they tried to add some jokes like this, but it didn't make any sense.
So you boys on Facebook? I'll poke you. Better yet, I'll tweet you.
Ah, tweet us to dinner? Certainly.
In this movie, they're not from the past, they're just from present day. So why don't they know what an iPhone is?
What is that gadget? This is an iPhone.
iPhone. Hello? Hello? There's nobody there.
Number 4 is another possible direction, and that is making it a drama. Base it around the real people behind the characters. There's an interesting story behind these guys. The Three Stooges had movies, a cartoon, there's a rise to fame, a decline, struggles along the way. Curly had a stroke, they replaced him with Shemp. Shemp had a heart attack. And yet there's still very natural places to include a little comedy. If done well enough, this could be Oscar-type material. But instead we have this. It had such high potential, but in my opinion fell completely short. The best thing about it to me was the Larry character and a handful of funny gags.
Yeah, what's it gonna take to save this place?
A lot of this.
Oh, well that's doable. How many boogers we talking about?
But they're all sandwiched in between unfunny ones. If you're a huge fan of the classic Three Stooges, I don't recommend this because you'll just be disappointed and find yourself reaching for the older shorts. If you dislike the original Three Stooges, don't watch this because it's the same type of physical humor. If you're somewhat indifferent about the Three Stooges or have never seen them before, then I suppose I recommend it. At least watch the first of the 3 segments. I'd say that was probably the best one. And if you were disappointed at that point, there's really no point in continuing. There's nothing that makes you want to stick it through to the end. So there's my review. That's the end of my first episode. I encourage participation in the comments. A lot of what I said was just my opinion, so please let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know other movies you want me to cover, and let me know how I did on my first episode. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.